happy to have Ken Gramley here tonight from Emerging Threats Pro. I think this is a very cool company that is doing things that you all need to know about, but you probably don't know about. So Ken has been the CEO for about 18 months?
2 years.
2 years. Has raised funding from Halo about a year ago, and Elevate Ventures. So very exciting story, and Lafayette, Indiana is where they are based, but they are having an increasing presence here in Indianapolis, and they have been a TechPoint Mira finalist, I think, again this year, correct?
Yes.
But Ken has a very good background. He is a Rose-Hulman graduate. Any other Rose graduates here tonight? Oh, come on.
Wow. I'm all alone.
Yeah, they're lost, Ken. The rest of us will absorb all the knowledge. So, but very happy to have Ken here tonight to tell their story, and I just think this will be a very timely thing with a lot of interesting things going on. Every day we read another significant security event, and we should all be increasingly worried. And Ken and Emerging Threats are doing a lot of very interesting things to try and mitigate and protect us from a lot of those cyber harms that are out there. So please join me in welcoming Ken Gramley.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. Like you said, I'm with Emerging, and as someone pointed out on my name tag, I am with Emerging Treats. And if I had known that, I would have brought something to pass around, some little chocolates or something, but I didn't think of that.
Twinkies.
Twinkies, there we go. So, how many people here shop at Target? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. How many people here shopped at Target? Keep your hands up. How many people here shopped at Target during the time when they had their breach? Okay, I am sorry to say I got nothing for you. You're pretty screwed. That is exactly the type of thing we help companies prevent. However, once it's been breached, that's beyond our expertise. So what I want to do here today is talk a little bit about the actors who do these things and how they've evolved over the years. So I'm not really going to spend a lot of time talking about products or anything like that. This isn't a company pitch. But we're going to talk mostly about the actors. Our company has been around, well, we were an open source group. That open source group was created in 2002. So we have been around as an entity for a long time. We've been selling commercial product for about 3 years now. And we now have 3 products on the market, all directed to help companies like Target prevent things like being a national headline and joke on late night television. So what is a cyber threat? You know, people talk about risks, and risks end up having a number of components. First is, you have no risk if you have no value, right? So you have to have some level of value you're trying to protect, and there's no risk if there's no vulnerability. And in the old days, that vulnerability could be an unlocked door, but nowadays it's an unlocked website. And then there's no risk if there's no threat to you, if there is no actor. And those things can create the potential for loss, which is where you get your risk. So what we're going to talk about here is the actors and the threat and how they have evolved. Now, there are products that address vulnerability, and one of our products does that. And there are a newer segment of the market is addressing the threat part. And when you hear us talk about our IQ risk, we are addressing the threat, where we are trying to identify the actors that are doing criminal activity so that you can prevent your network from connecting to those actors. You know, one of the things that they don't talk about, security is kind of the inverse of convenience. So the more things that you add to your network, whether it's bring your own device, whether it's more and more complicated websites, the more lines of code you have going into something that you're delivering to a customer, by definition, the more vulnerable it's going to be, because there's more opportunities for software engineers to make mistakes. So as things grow in complexity and ease of use, the risk and the security goes down, the risk goes up. And the reason, when you ask the reason why, it's all about the money. It is all about the Benjamins. So according to Symantec, and I'm not sure I agree with this statistic, but it's a very interesting statistic. According to Symantec, cybercrime exceeded the black market for heroin, cocaine, and marijuana combined. It is a big, big business. And the thing that everybody needs to realize is that these people treat it like a business. And their business models have evolved over time, just like ours do. And in some of the countries that these people operate, they're actually considered legitimate businesses. Okay, like I said, they're running a business. I don't know if you're Breaking Bad fans, but you know, they just got to do it. So, you know, if you think about, if I wanted to steal $1 million, if I go back in time, it required guns, it required maybe some heavy equipment, it required the high risk of potentially getting injured or killed in the process, and going to jail was a real possibility. Nowadays, all of those risks to the criminals are gone. The internet has made everything easier, both good and bad. So instead of trying to break into a bank to steal $1 million, why don't I just go online and steal $1 a million times? And that's what a lot of them do. You know, if you, there's a literal supply chain in the bad guys. If you steal credit cards, for instance, chances are you're not going to go and charge those credit cards yourself. You're going to sell the credit card. Did you know that there's a different price for that credit card, whether it has been validated or not validated? So if I steal 1 million credit cards from, oh, say, Target, I'm then going to try and run them, and I might try and run a penny on each card. Not so that I can make a whopping $10,000, but by doing that penny, I throw out all of the ones that were old cards. Well, I guess they were swiping at the thing, so they weren't old. But if you steal from a database, you'll get old data in that. And some of those credit cards won't be valid anymore. So they want to get those out of there to provide a good list to their customers. And their customers are going to pay far more for valid credit card numbers than old credit card numbers. So there's a whole hierarchy of who has the expertise to do different pieces. If you're my age, you can remember back when the internet was new, and the first things that we saw when we got on, where things started to go bad, were you would log on and you'd open your browser, and it would take you someplace that you did not want to be, okay? And if you're at work, you're like trying to throw something over your monitor. And if you're at home, God forbid if your wife sees it, because you're going to, honey, I didn't go there, honest, I don't know what happened. And you know, sometimes you might get 50 windows pop up. And that's if you're lucky, somebody just hijacked your browser. If you were unlucky, they would trash your hard disk and erase your files. And a lot of these were done by kids learning a new skill set. And so we had kind of the genesis of the industry that we see now, where they used script kiddies, they would try vulnerable services. It was the genesis of malware. Malware existed. You know, worms would go, you'd open a Word spreadsheet or a Word file, and Word would then send everybody in your email list a duplicate of that. If you were lucky, that's all it would do. I once actually infected an entire, I had a customer, we were doing contract work, and we infected that entire customer's company. So all of us, I think, have been hit by these things. I remember calling the guy up that my thing had sent an email to. I'm like, don't open it, don't open it. And as I'm telling him this over the phone, he goes, what, this? And he clicks on it. Boom. And he's like, what do I do? And I'm like, unplug your computer. And this was before Wi-Fi. Anyway, we've all seen these things. I think we've all, and we've probably noticed that, gee, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. You know, why? How many times recently have you had your browser hijacked? Well, the browsers have gotten better. And frankly, for those kids who have now grown up, What's the fun in hijacking a browser or crashing a computer? As they grew up, they realized they needed to make money, and so they went one of two ways. They either became security professionals, like me, or they continued down the dark side. And you would be surprised at the number of security professionals that have some level of black hat in their youth, where as a teenager, up to early 20s, they did some sketchy things, and then they realized, this isn't right, I need to turn my path around, but I've got this great skill set I've learned. And so they use that on the good side. And I've seen that in every company I've gone to. You got to take them out and get a couple of beers in them before they'll fess up to that. But, I worked with one guy once who, as a high schooler, had the FBI show up at his doorstep. And he told me he was just so thankful that his parents were not at home because he never told them. But that was the incident that scared him straight. And they did not prosecute him, but they prosecuted the guy that he was doing stuff with, who was 22 years old. He was a high schooler. Okay, so in the beginning, there were kids, they were doing these things, they grew up, they needed to make money, and so they created a business model. And the 1.0 version of their model was fairly simple. It was, okay, I already know how to hack your computer, so I'm going to try and hack your computer and take something from you. And one of the things trying to be visible, haha, I got you, now they try to be invisible. And not be able to put stuff on your computer and you not know it. And then they would compromise your computer, see if they could get your banking records or whatever. And that was kind of the first step in the process. And we've kind of dubbed this the mom and pop shop. Somebody who's learned this basic skill set, they go off, they do this. But they wanted to make more money because they realized, gee, if I can say, if I can steal $100 from this person, how can I do that 1,000 times where I don't have to do it at the keyboard 1,000 times, because that takes too long. So they grew their business model where they went to a global scale. And I don't know how many people here have heard of botnets, but the botnets out there are absolutely enormous. So a botnet is a group of computers that is under the control of an individual or organization. And there are botnets. Burrito Lab has 30 million computers that they believe they can control. And part of, and I call this part of 3.0, but part of this process, you create a botnet like that, the botnet in itself has value. They rent the botnet out. So, I create a botnet of 10 million, and I say, okay, you want to use part of my botnet? Fine, what do you need, 50,000, 150,000, 300,000 computers? You can rent those from me. I'm not going to ask you any questions on what you're going to do with it, because then I might be doing something illegal. And I'm a legitimate business person. So here's your rented botnet, go for it. So with this, they have scaled themselves up. And what they do is the bots actually can pass themselves along. So I infect your computer infects hers infects those four infect those 16. And the network just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It allows them to control the PC. They connect back to a command and control server. That command and control server basically tells the bot what you want it to do. I want you to do a denial of service attack against this company. I want to do, if you're big enough, I want to do a denial of service attack against this country. I want to do, we're going to direct towards stealing this information. So as many different things as we can. They are unlimited in their ingenuity. So as I mentioned, some of the botnets are really big. This is actually a picture of the interconnected of one of the botnets. And I'm sorry, I didn't make this slide, I don't remember whose it is. But this is a global picture where they took the Earth out of all of the connections to a particular botnet. So one botnet can have a global reach. It's kind of scary. So the 2.0 business model, the attacker's gone global. Everything is, they have an army of PCs behind them. And now, instead of trying to just steal your stuff, they're trying to use your computer to steal other stuff. And then they moved from that model to what we're kind of dubbing the 3.0 business model, where they start to specialize and compartmentalize. So the guy who does the botnet just does the botnet, and he rents it out, because that's what he's good at. The guy who writes malware just writes malware, and he sells that off to whoever. And there is a massive underground network to buy malware. You can buy malware kits, where you buy the kit, you install the kit, it's got a nice GUI on it, you click the type of things you want to do, you put in where your IP addresses and domain names are, where your command and control server is going to be, you hit a button and it creates an executable for you to then put out and spread through the internet. And you can buy that as a kit for, I think it's about $4,000 or $5,000. Anyway, so there's both a criminal element to this, and they look at themselves as service providers, right? I'm providing a service to this infrastructure that ultimately steals billions of dollars a year. We have variable pricing. We have, one of the interesting things, in many countries, it's not illegal to steal things via the internet or to hack a computer. Some countries have it, it's only illegal to do those in your own country. So for instance, if you're in the Ukraine and you're a hacker, they've actually done it so that their bots won't install themselves on PCs that have the Ukrainian key set, because that would be illegal, and they wouldn't want to do anything illegal now, would they? And they know that as long as they follow that, the Ukrainian government isn't going to care if they're hacking other countries. Same is true of China. One of the things I haven't really mentioned in this is nation states do this as well. I don't know if you heard of Mandy had put out a report a while ago where they did a wonderful job tracking what a division of the Chinese army was doing. And the goal of that division was to steal secrets from English-speaking countries' companies. And they had documented many of the cases, and everything was coming out of this division. It was not, oh, there were a few people in it. It was, they had documented the level of internet service that they had dropped into these buildings. And it was, they were really caught red-handed, and of course they have denied everything. But the thing to just be aware of is that all of the bad guys see what they do as a business. And we're no longer being attacked by teenagers sitting in the next neighborhood over who are bored and have nothing to do. These guys are intent. They are intent on making money. They don't see what they are doing as wrong. And they are not being blocked by governments. So, you know, until international law catches up, which it may never do, this stuff isn't going to stop. In certain countries, it is. I mean, here in this country, it's illegal. However, you will find it very difficult, unless you're somebody like Target and have a breach of that size, to get law enforcement interested in prosecuting somebody unless you can show pretty major damage, because it happens so often and it's so hard to track down. You know, one of the biggest things is just be careful where you go on the internet. You know, if you like going to gambling sites, offshore gambling sites, gee, they may be dropping something on your computer to track you that you don't know about, or to put a bot there. So, you know, the neighborhood that you hang out in, just like a physical neighborhood, you know, I think most people are careful about the physical neighborhoods they go to. Same thing is true online. You have to be careful about the neighborhood you go to. Not that all, you know, good guys like Target get compromised, but if you go to some place that's sketchy, you're guaranteed to find something. You know, we provide solutions to try and help identify these actors. We identify them by IP address. We don't identify them by Steve and John and Susan. We identify them by IP address and domain name. And so we provide that information in real time to our clients so that they can know, gee, maybe I shouldn't connect to these. At any given time, we're tracking about 500,000 malicious domains and IPs. And we update that list hourly, so we are giving real-time information to our clients to try and combat what they're seeing here. And that was all I had. Did anybody have any questions?
What do you think of turning over the DNS service outside of the U.S. as a global
So I'm a little mixed. I mean, they make it sound like it's government controlled right now, and it's not really. It's been controlled by an organization. I think it's been politicized a bit, and it's not going to be as big a deal as what it's being made out. But I don't know that I've thought that through to its end conclusion. So,
have you thought about what sort of organization you would favor as a replacement for ICANN?
No, I haven't. I'm perfectly happy with ICANN. You know, it has its flaws. We could make some improvements there, but I don't think anybody else that takes it over is going to do a better job. So, I mean, in that respect, I would rather keep it the way it is. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I thought they changed their mind.
I haven't heard anything recent. Do you think they have?
I think they
Okay. I mean,
reversed course.
okay. Well, I think that'll be a good thing then.
What do you think about high frequency trading?
High frequency trading.
It's a variation on the same theme.
Don't have an opinion on it.
Sort of like bots within the financial community.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry?
How do your products help customers avoid these situations? What products do you have that help keep
So
them
we have a couple of things. We have some products that are very good at detecting malware communication on your network. That's the product that was originally done by the open source group, and it is very effective at. We collect malware on a daily basis. We bring in around 250,000 new unique pieces of malware a day. We run them all in virtual environments. We let them talk to the internet so that we see where they're going to, and that's part of what we do to see who are the bots, who are the command and control servers, that kind of thing. So that's one thing that we do, and then the other is we provide information on who those IPs and domains are in a real-time basis. So you can ingest that into a domain name server, into a firewall, IPS, router, to be able to block and not connect to today's currently active command and control servers.
Do you have a software suite that handles that? Or is there
We sell the information. We actually don't sell a software suite. We sell information, and it can be ingested.
Not-for-profits like Malware, Bytes, and Spybot Search and Destroy.
We do with some of them. We, you know, especially Matt, our founder, is a big open source guy, right? So we have cooperated whenever we can and whatever way that makes sense. You know, in certain things, we see that we do just a better job than some of the others do, especially in like the malware and spacing out on the name. But there's one that a lot of people, where you put in the malware, it's called an MD5, is how we identify different pieces of malware. You put it in and it'll come back and say, these antivirus companies have already detected it. We almost always detect things a couple of days before the antivirus guys do. So,
What kind of characteristics tip you off that something is among the bad actors?
so we have a global network of sensors that are running our rules that sit on backbones of carriers and ISPs that have made different levels of agreements with us. And so we ingest around 7 to 10 million events a day, security events a day from that. And that plus the information that comes from running the malware is where we get the vast majority of what goes, of what we analyze. Because when a security event comes to us, we know, okay, the source IP address was the bot that was compromised, the destination IP address is the command and control server, or exe dropper, or whatever else, and then the actual IDS rule that was triggered tells us what kind of malware family, what the event was that happened. So we learn a lot from each of those events. And then, you know, at 7 million a day, you get a decent view of what's going on. We are working hard this year to expand that network. We want to drive our 7 million up to be much, much larger. We've spent quite a bit of time recently building the infrastructure so that we can scale that up. Because it's a lot of data to handle. We consider it big data with that much information coming in. All told, we're at probably around 3/4 of a petabyte of data in the company. In our searchable databases, we're at about 5 to 10 terabytes. So,
What do you do with an encrypted payload?
you need my malware writers to handle that one. Encrypted payloads are very difficult. But a lot of stuff can be found by looking at the headers, how they handle the headers, and just user agents. User agents, it's amazing how poorly user agents are structured by the bad guys. And so, you know, you can look at a user agent and it'll be for a version of Internet Explorer that doesn't exist. Okay, well, guess what? Something is fishy there. So, but encrypted payloads are a problem.
What's your ratio of government to commercial sector investment?
We are primarily commercial. I mean, we do sell to government, but I wouldn't say that we've put effort into land big government contracts yet. So what we've done is we sell onesie-twosies into lots of government agencies, but not a lot of big deals. US CERT is probably the biggest customer that we have, so you know, I hope that we'll be able to grow that in the future. But
What would you say to businesses that are still running XP?
well, I guess at first I'd ask why, but you know, sometimes it's just time to upgrade. So that would be, you know, I think Microsoft, as time has gone by, has done a better and better job of protecting their operating system. So I think from a security standpoint, you would be better off. And obviously they're not going to fix anything else they find in XP, so that's a problem.
So to my knowledge, you know, open source Nord or Suricata doesn't feed back any of the vulnerability info back to you guys?
No.
And to the best of my knowledge, my carriers don't let you sniff my traffic, but you've got sensors in place, so how do you ethically get on those carrier networks?
Certain information is obfuscated. So in the agreements that we have, certain information is obfuscated. We don't, I mean, the box is sniffing on the network. The carrier looks at it and then obfuscates usually certain parts within their network, but not the things that are going bad outside their network. And that's what we see.
Two questions. One, what is a suricata? Second is, when you find a bad actor, are you 100% sure it's a bad actor, or only reasonably sure, or is it
Okay, that's a
level of confidence in being a bad actor?
Two great questions. I'll answer the first. The first question was, what is suricata? Suricata is an open source IDS system. IDS is an intrusion detection system. It is a device that usually sits next to a firewall on a corporate network. Its job is to do a deep packet inspection on every packet that goes by and try to see if there's something wrong with it or not. And it does that by using a set of rules, where the rule says look for this sequence of events. And we sell a set of rules for IDS. The most popular open source out there is Snort. It's been around for a long time. We support all of the Snort platforms, well, back to 2.8 or whatever. And then our founder was also the founder of the OISF, which wrote Suricata. So we have a predisposed bias towards the Suricata engine, which is gaining some popularity. Okay, so that's the answer to the first question, what is Suricata? The second question was, in our list, we actually categorize and score all of the information that we deliver to our customers. So with our rule set, we detect and have categorized about 40 different items that we keep track of. To be fair, not all of them are bad. Some of them are more policy-based. So we will bots, command and control servers, exe droppers, but we will also monitor Tor nodes or chat servers or something like that. And so then you can decide in your own network, no, we're not supposed to have Tor nodes, so I'm going to enable those rules. Or if you're a university, you say, nah, I don't care about Tor nodes, and you don't enable those rules. And then what we do is we score within each of those categories. So the higher our score, the more confidence that we have that it is an actual bad. And we score from 1 to 127. So the scores are primarily based on activity, but we are factoring other things into it as well.
So just what you said there, can that customer then decide what level they want to put the threshold
Absolutely.
at?
It's then up to the customer to say, okay, I'm okay with a threshold of 30 or 50 or 100, and they can play around with it to see what they're comfortable with.
Can I have two questions? As the host, I'll take the privilege of asking two. The first one's personal. The second one's for the benefit of our audience and for you. The first one is, do you bank online?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Good enough. Second one is, what can everyone here in TechPoint do to help what you guys are trying to do, either spread the word, or what do you need that we can help kind of advance the cause of emerging threats?
Oh, wow. Didn't expect that question. I think our presence is becoming better and better known. If you work at an organization, ask your security team if they know about us.
Okay.
And we would be happy to have a conversation with them to see if we'd be a good fit for what they need. That's the biggest thing. And we have customers that buy one license for one IDS appliance, which is $500 a year. It's not that expensive, all the way up to Verizon, which is a pretty big account for us. So.
Can you talk about Heartbleed a little bit and how something so major is not come on the scene until this?
Well, I think, so our website, by the way, was down for 2 hours with Heartbleed, between an hour and 2 hours. We host a lot of stuff at Amazon. We took, Amazon uses the open VPN software that had the thing, so we took everything down. We replaced it all with our own stuff. We brought it back up. We waited for them to fix it. We then took it down, and then we went to all of our customers and said, okay, you need to update your passwords. And I talked to somebody the other day that still wasn't back up. So one of the things that's interesting about the process that we've built internally to analyze things, we have lots and lots of traffic that has been shared with us over the years that we keep and run against our rule sets. And so one of the things that we will do is if we write a new rule, so for instance when Heartbleed comes out, we say, okay, we now know what this is, we know how the compromise works, we can write some rules to try and detect it. Now, we can actually go through lots and lots of old traffic to see, have we seen anybody actually exploit this? And we have a very large open source group that was doing the same thing at their sites. We haven't found anybody yet who found somebody who actually exploited that issue before it was announced. So I think one of the things is simply the first guy who found it were the people who reported it. And I think that's actually one of the few cases that is good news for us. The good, well, yeah. I think it could have been distributed a little better than it was, but instead of, here it is, now it's a free-for-all. But we can't find any prior day exploits to it. So that was a good thing.
Any particular verticals where your signature creation is a special control, healthcare? You've done looking at different types of protocols and packets in specific industries.
So I would not say that we have a vertical that we're a better fit in. We do have a particular area of rule set that we are better at, and that's malware. Intrusion detection systems historically were not designed to fight malware. Malware was considered an antivirus issue, and that was handled at the desktop with antivirus. And it was the open source community about 12 years ago that said, you know, we can write rules and add them to our snort boxes that detect malware, and this is a really cool way to do it. And that group gained momentum, and then that's what we do really well. So, you know, if I were to compare other rules that we write, I wouldn't say we're any better than other vendors, but with the addition of malware, which is the attacks that are the hardest to detect and the most, well, I should say the most prevalent thing that you're fighting against, that's what the value that we add.
I have time for one more question.
One more?
A lot of pressure on that
There
last
are
question,
none. Yeah,
though.
I guess. Okay.
One last question? There we go.
You guys are partially funded by military, US,
No.
correct?
Nope. So Suricata was developed by,
Not Suricata, emerging threats.
oh, we don't, I think you're doing that from the review that was sent out, and I'm not sure where that came from. Emerging threats, the open source group may have had some help before they ever commercialized, but we as a commercial entity have never taken any money from the government. Almost every investor we have is in this room today. So.
Okay. Well, hey, let's thank Ken for coming tonight. Emerging threats is just, I think, one of the, typical examples of some of the great things that are going on in our technology community here. I think, to Ken's point, there are people in this room that have helped them, but I think we can all do, so if you know a chief information security officer at a company, those are key people that Ken would love to get to know. So think about your networks and who those people are. I mean, I think this is moving one step ahead and almost as faster than the people that are threatening these organizations. And so let's get the word out about emerging threats. And I think it's a great story, and I'm glad a lot of you know about it. So, but thank you, Ken, for coming tonight and telling us the story.